إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, my dear respected beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, I'm very blessed and honored to be here and to speak on this blessed day of Friday. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and bless this gathering. Today, I pose a question I'm sure many of us have thought about, many of us have reflected on, and many of us have pondered. ما حقيقة الحياة الدنيا? What is the reality of this worldly life? This is a very critical question. When we look around the room and we search within our lives, we see people of all different ages, from infants to children to teenagers to adults to elderly to people we once knew amongst us who are now gone. Everybody's in a different stage, everybody's in a different point in their life, but we have a responsibility to understand how to navigate this life, how to make it through this journey that we're on. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he described this dunya as him traveling through and pausing to rest under a tree. A moment of rest, and then he leaves the tree and he departs. Such is this worldly life. It's short. It goes by with the blink of an eye. For those who are older, years have passed and they think back, where have the years gone? They're gone. Just like that, they're gone. A blink of an eye and our life comes to an end. For many of us, we're confused. We don't have clarity of vision. We're not focused on the core purpose of why we are here. What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to navigate? So what we end up doing is we search for happiness in all the wrong places. We search for pleasure and contentment in all the wrong places. When we search for pleasure, when we seek out happiness away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will never find happiness in such a way. It will lead to obvious failure. But when you come closer to Allah, when you come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is where you find happiness, tranquility, contentment within your heart. When you learn to live your life the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted you to live, then you will find that happiness. You will figure out the correct way. Some people, when they're looking what life is all about, they look to some corrupt philosophers or some famous public speakers. But we're blessed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave us without guidance. He gave us the Quran, He gave us the Sunnah, He gave us much in the way of direction in how to live our lives. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about this dunya? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He said many things that I want to focus on just a couple of specific words in particular. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة. 3 quick descriptions. He said to the believers and to mankind at large, know that this worldly life is لعب ولهو وزينة. It's a game. It's play. It's nothing more than play, distraction and amusement, and zina. I want to focus on those 2 words, لعب وزينة. First and foremost, we know for every game there are rules. قوانين اللعبة. There are rules to the game. This is our responsibility to figure out these rules. If this life is nothing more than a game, then how do I make it through? What rules do I adhere to? These rules are all within the Quran and the Sunnah. Many rules and instructions for us to be successful, and such is the case with any game. Any game, in order to be successful, you need to know the rules, how to play the game, how to win the game. And in life, for us to win the game, it always comes back to following the instructions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His commandments, and the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The other word I want to focus on is the word of zina. Zina is actually a tricky word to translate. You look at translations and they say adornment. They say a decoration. But when you look at this word zina, first of all, it has implied in it a sense of outward appearance that is beautiful, but within it is an emptiness, a worthlessness. And such is this hayatul dunya. It's a zina. You imagine a time when you're buying a car, or you're buying some furniture, or anything for that matter, and the item that you're buying, the car on the outside, it looks very appealing. The person shined it up. It's presented very well. It looks like it's extra taken care of on the outside. So you fall for it. You quickly want to buy it. You're drawn to its beauty. So you buy that car. And then when you come to drive it and you examine it, you find the suspensions do not work. You find the engine struggling. The transmission doesn't shift. You find the heat in the car doesn't work. You start to discover all sorts of problems. Such is the hayatul dunya. It's full of outward beauty on the outside, temptation, things that look appealing or are made to be appealing, but rather they are worthless. This is the first characteristic to recognize that the zina has no value, has no inherent value. When you look at the core substance of it, you look deep within it. What is the value in this dunya? لو ملكت الدنيا كلها. When you die, will you take anything with you? Nothing. It has little value to you whatsoever. And such the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, الدنيا لا تساوي عند الله جناح بعوضة. The dunya with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not even worth the wing of a fly. But sadly and unfortunately, we find the Muslimin, many, إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبِّي, have become backwards. The dunya seems like it has such great value to them. We're so consumed by it. We're so driven towards it. So much so to the extent that we compromise our deen. We sell our faith for something minor of the dunya. This is the reality that we see today. And this is the great loss. I'm not here today to tell you to abandon the dunya altogether. This is not possible, and this is not what we're commanded to do. We can seek out the dunya in a halal, mubah way, but not in a way that diverts us from the remembrance of Allah. Not in a way that distracts us from our core mission and our core purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out to the believers, O you who believe, do not be distracted by your wealth, by your money, by your children from the remembrance of Allah. Don't let that distract you. And whomever does this, they are from the losers. When we look at the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message is so abundantly clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ. And this worldly life is nothing more than amusement and play. وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, but the hereafter is far better for those who have piety, for those who have taqwa. Will we not understand? Will we not comprehend such a message? Will we not realize that the akhirah is far greater, far more everlasting, far more significant than anything this dunya has to offer? So why are we so tempted by it? Why do we give up the hereafter for this dunya? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that women, children, gold and money, they've all been made appealing to people, to mankind. Also, fine horses, والخيل المسومة, and al-harf, the land. All these things have been made appealing. They've been made as zina. This is what this dunya is as zina. And the reality is, this was the primary mission of shaitan. This was the primary mission of shaitan. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala banished him, what did he say, shaitan? He said, لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ. He used that word that comes from zina, that he will come to the land and he will tempt the people and he will strive to misguide every last one of them. This is the mission of shaitan, to make this dunya appealing to us, to tempt us by this dunya. And what this dunya has to offer is just one great deception. And we know as a whole, this dunya we have established is a zina. But within it, one of these temptations is the society at large and the powers that be and everyone that has an agenda and the culture at large. They are striving to dress up falsehood as truth, to dress up the evil and make it look like it's something good, to show us lies and present them like they are truth, to direct us to what is wrong and make it seem like we're doing something right. This is how they're trying to confuse the people at large. They do many dirty tactics. They call things with names. They give it respectable names.
They take things like drugs and alcohol, and they give them cool and fun names. They take influencers and public figures and celebrities, and they get them to normalize the haram, make it seem like it's modern, it's cool, it's something enjoyable, it's not a big deal. For anybody who's watching movies and TV shows and even advertisements and commercials, you will find all this tazyeen, all this marketing, all this selling of haram, trying to show us that haram is okay. But they do it in a very implied way. They're not coming up explicitly telling you, look at this munkar, you should come and do it, and it's bad, but come and do it. They don't do it like that. They sell you on it. But one of our problems is we can't see, we can't distinguish, we can't recognize the right from the wrong. And even around us, we have individuals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described, some pagans, some mushrikeen, that would kill their children. They would kill their children. Imagine a man would have a child and he would go kill that child. But not only this, he would go and make this action appealing to his other friends and his other people around him. Allah tells us of such people. Allah warns us of this and of this worldly life. We have to be able to recognize those around us that are pulling to us towards evil or dressing up evil to look good. You know, this tactic, people struggle to recognize it. Even Adam alayhi salam, when shaitan came to him, what did he say to him? هَلْ أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْدِ وَمُلْكٍ لَا يَبْلَى. He said to him, should I not direct you to this tree of immortality, this tree that would make you live eternally, and a kingdom that would never fade away? This is marketing. This is selling his temptation. And around us is all kinds of marketing, all kinds of people with agendas, organizations trying to lead us astray. But not only this, one of the people that is doing this tazyeen in some cases may be you yourself. You yourself might be tempting yourself, and forgive me for saying this, but we have to be honest. We have to be realistic. Sometimes we tell ourselves lies. We justify the wrong that we are doing. We make it appealing. We normalize it. We say it's no big deal. And we even do so with the children who are around us. We look at our children, our wives, our families, and we tell ourselves, yeah, they're doing okay. They're doing good. Everything seems fine. But when you dig a little closer, you look a little deeper, you find many of problems. I work with youth as a counselor. I can't tell you how many hundreds of times I've sat with a 15-year-old that tells me outrageous things they are doing, and their family has no clue. No clue. They're not aware. They're not attuned. They're not paying attention. They might think their son is doing very well. And this might be the case for some of us. Pay attention. Be aware. Don't let the temptations of this dunya take you astray or take your family astray. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. At the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the Battle of Uhud, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he instructed the archers on the mountain to not come down until the battle is over. And some of the archers, when they thought the battle was over, they came down too early. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed a verse. And part of this verse says, مِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرِيدُ الدُّنْيَا وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرِيدُ الْآخِرَةِ. These Sahaba, they made a mistake. They thought the battle was over, but it really wasn't, and it caused a lot of harm. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, when he heard the revelation of this verse, it was so shocking to him that this verse could apply to some of them, that there would be some amongst them that desire the dunya. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that some of them desire the dunya and some of them desire the akhirah. This was shocking to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. That he realized that none of them were about the dunya. They lived with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he lived a very simple life. A life that involved nothing to do with chasing the dunya. It was all about the da'wah. It was all about spreading the message. He was the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and this is what he taught the companions. That within their hearts, the dunya was not there. So in order for us to navigate this dunya and this zina that we're talking about, I want to give 3 pieces of advice. 3 simple pieces of advice. And even though each one of them is a great topic, but it's something for us to take home and to work on with ourselves. Number 1, when I talk about recognizing the falsehood, recognizing the deception, having vision, having basira, I'm not talking about seeing with your eyes. This is not a seeing with your eyes. This is a seeing of the heart. Our number 1 step is islah al-qulub. In order for you to recognize truth from falsehood, it needs a pure heart. It needs a heart that's taken care of. It needs a heart that's attached to the salah, attached to the masjid, attached to the Quran, attached to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what purifies our heart. This is a heart that's away and distant from haram. This is a heart that strives and turns back to Allah. This is a heart that is soft, has feeling, feels guilt when it transgresses, is affected by the recitation of the Quran. This is the type of heart we need. This is what will help us find guidance and find truth. But on the other hand, that toxic, polluted, that heart that is damaged could easily fall further into the depths of misguidance and darkness. So we have to work on fixing our hearts so we can see, so we don't fall into the traps of shaitan and the deception of this dunya. Number 2 is the characteristic of sabr, patience. This is the great characteristic of the believer. If the believer wants to make it to Jannah, wants to navigate this dunya, and this is a topic that khutbah could be done on, the topic of sabr, they must develop this trait within themselves, to have sabr, to recognize that the dunya, as the Prophet ﷺ said, ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. This dunya is like a prison for the believer. It has boundaries, it has restrictions. You're not here to run around and do whatever you want, whatever you feel, chase your desires. This is not the believer. The believer is carefully and cautiously navigating this dunya. The kafir, on the other hand, does whatever he feels, whatever he wants. It's a life of desire. But the believer, he recognizes that مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. That which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is far better, far greater. So, developing patience, that when you have any temptations around you, you have patience to control yourself. Number 3 is knowledge. It's sad to see today many young people and many youth going through life with little bit of knowledge. They don't know haram or halal. They don't recognize the insignificance of this dunya. They don't have the knowledge of how important the akhirah is. They haven't sat with the Quran and learned and studied, they haven't learned about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you ask them about any of the Sahaba, they know very little about them. But yet they can tell you about hockey players and soccer players and fulan or fulan. The knowledge, you have a responsibility. Teach your children. What's the reality of this dunya? What's the rules of living in this life? How to live, how to be a Muslim, how to make it through, that this life is temporary, that the akhirah is everlasting. This is our responsibility to ourselves and our children, to seek knowledge and to learn. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to what is best. Allahumma aghfir lana dhunubana wa afina wa afu anna. Allahumma ahdina wa ahdi bina wa ja'alna hudatan mahdiyyin. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد وأقم الصلاة